In Germany, they use all the titles, right? Herr Doctor, Professor, which Mike would know. And so we invited him to come over here. And so he flew over here. He's on his way to San Juan and then to Beijing and Shanghai from here. But he went out of his way to come here to address us and certain other groups that were very excited to have him come into the area, as you might imagine. And he's going to speak to us today. Now, last evening, before I turn the time to Mo to give you a little more technical and professional introduction, we took Dr. Merzenich to dinner. And what I discovered in the conversations and the warmth and the positive atmosphere of last evening was that he is a completely selfless man, devoted to the well-being, especially of the young. And he believes that everybody can do better than they're doing, and he's going to talk to us about that. So I'm just deeply honored and thrilled to be able to present to you our speaker today, but we're going to have Mo get up because Mo, a doctor in this science area himself, is going to give you the rest of the introduction.
I have to give all credit for having Professor Merzenich visiting us to Dwayne. He was really on top of everything from the start. So I have to really acknowledge that and thank you very much. I met Dr. Merzenich a few years ago. As you know, I'm a neuroscientist. The main reason, because I grown up as a student and as a researcher, we couldn't avoid his name in research article and science work. But I met him personally when I started the project that you all know about, which is establishing a neurological rehabilitation facility in Morocco. And the reason why I felt I have to engage him is I discovered through the book that Dwayne mentioned and some other information I found online, is that he is one of the top people in the whole planet as far as applying the cutting edge scientific discoveries into the world of neurological rehabilitation. And it took us about 30 seconds when I talked to him the first time. It was actually from Morocco, and his daughter called me and she said, I understand you're trying to reach my dad. And I says, yes, it's been a few weeks that I'm waiting. She said, well, do you want to talk to him? I says, yes. He says, now? I says, yes. So to the call, and from then I discovered, like Dwayne was mentioning, he's just a very kind, very knowledgeable, and very helping spirit. He have been to Morocco a few times, and he's a great sponsor and supporter of our project. Without any further delay, what I would like to tell you about him, he grew up in Oregon, Portland. That's where he got his bachelor's degree in science. And then he moved to Johns Hopkins Medical School, where he got his Ph.D. And then moved to Wisconsin, where he got his postdoctoral training. And then moved back to the West Coast, precisely at UCSF Medical School, where he got his professor, researcher job for the past 45 years. Like I said, his name is well known in the science of the brain science, and specifically the neuroplasticity that he will go into explain to us today. He had received 100 patents related to research, published more than 300 scientific peer-reviewed scientific publications, received numerous awards. He's a member of the Academy of Science, the National Academy of Science, but also the Academy Institute of Medicine, two positions that are being held by very, very few people in the whole world. And he's also received recently, last August, the most prestigious award in neuroscience, the Cowley Award from Oslo. And I mean, the list goes on and on. So it's a really wonderful privilege and honor to welcome my good friend and mentors, Professor Merzenich.
Thank you, Mo. I want to say that I I know I'm in a room full of good people, because I know that you've contributed so much to supporting the most wonderful project in Morocco. And it's a kind of project that can change how things happen for the benefit of people that suffer across a large part of the world. We can just get it to flower and start to spread. And you've contributed a lot to getting it off to a good start. And I'm also doing my darndest to help us get off to a good start. And I very much appreciate the kind of thing you do to help people like Bo to make big things happen. I also want to say that this is not the first time I've been invited to speak at a Rotary Club meeting. The last time was 58 years ago. When I was 16 years old in my hometown of Lebanon, Oregon, where I had the great honor to be elected what was called a Junior Rotarian of the Month. And that meant I went to the Rotary Club and I was asked to talk a little bit about what was happening in high school and what I intended to do with my life. And I think I was given 5 minutes to do that, and that was that took completely enough time, you know. But anyway, I still remember the good spirits I felt in the room, just like I can very much sense the good spirits that are in this room. You could say, I saw in front of me the best citizens of my town. Unfortunately, no females, but I'm really happy to see that you've corrected that. And, so it's wonderful to be doing. I want to say a few things before I start. The first thing I wanted to say is that I was allowed by the University of California to contribute to the founding of 2 companies. I actually was the initial leader in these 2 companies. And I'm actually the only professor at my university that was permitted to do that without losing their position. And that was assured because I assured them that I was not doing it for you sort of personal profit or self-aggrandizement. But you should understand that there are many ways that I profit by what these companies do, personally and professionally. And so when I talk about what they do, you should consider the potential of conflict of interest in what I say when I appear to be talking as a scientist, just to be polite about it. The second thing I want to say is that everything I'm going to talk about has been contributed to by many other people. So there's a tendency to give people that talk about grand things too much credit. To understand it's all teamwork, and that actually several thousand people, scientists, technologists, people in the therapeutic front lines, medical doctors of different stripes have contributed to the studies that I'm going to talk about, obviously very superficially. Several thousand people cannot be talked about in any depth in this limited amount of time. So this is going to be also once over likely a discussion of very, very complex neurological things. You're going to feel a little bit like somebody's turned the nozzle on. Maybe it's going to bury you under, because I'm also a nerd. You know, when you're once a nerd, always a nerd, and you're going to have to suffer through nerdiness. I'm going to talk about saying a little bit about what we know about the plastic brain. Not too many years ago, we believed, the general widespread belief was that the brain changed itself physically and functionally when we were infants and in very young life. And then it froze itself, you could say, and was hardwired. All of the elements of the brain were functionally fixed and rigid from that point forward to the end of life. So it's sort of like the computer on your desk. It had its wiring installed. It actually took a little time to grow up, but once it grew up, it was a fixed machine. So you could say once the child entered the schoolhouse door, their potential was pretty much a done deal, because their potential was defined by the fact that their brain is now rigidly wired and connected. And actually, not so many years ago, educational specialists would examine the intelligence quotient of a child, and they would sort them to try to find which child was worth their time to spend effort on. And knowing that the child that didn't do very well on the IQ test was not worth much effort. I think that was. What a tragedy it is to think of a brain through a life that only has one way to go, physically and functionally, and that's basically downhill. We now know that nothing could be further from the truth. We now know that the brain is continuously plastic, and that's the primary subject of my talk and discussion. I want to emphasize a really important thing about this plasticity, and that's its reversible nature. It's very easy to drive the brain, you could say north or south. I'm going to talk a little bit about how we know that that's so. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the medical and the practical implications of the fact you can throw a switch for your brain and drive it in a negative direction. You can change how you live your life or what you do with your brain, and just as rapidly throw it in a positive direction. Plasticity is actually designed by the creator of the universe to be reversible. That wasn't good. Third, I want to talk about how we apply this science to try to help people in need. So there's no more important part of us, you could say, from the point of view of our welfare, from a health perspective, than our neurology. And the majority of us in our lifetime suffer from serious neurological problems or maladies. So applying this science to try to help the brain use these natural processes to drive the brain in a positive or corrective or helpful direction is what this rehabilitation is all about. And finally, I want to talk a little bit at the end about how you can get the most out of your plastic brain, because you have one. And if you're not making use of it, and if you're not aware of it, and you're not living your life to the advantage of your brain, you're just a damn fool. So we're going to end with that, okay? So first of all, plastic is the basis of your brain's creation of a model of the world. This is what you have to do. You don't have one, you're not born with one, you don't really know what's out there. So amazing thing, what a gift, what a gift. By interaction with the world, you actually sort out what's out there. In a refined way, your brain creates a sort of construct of it, reliable, referenceable construct of it, and it basically slowly learns, you slowly learn how to control your operations within it. Very much a function of the individual environment in which you move from infancy out in the world, and the individual experiences in life and in training that you have in the world. Incredibly complicated. Because actually the evolution of the person, the creation of the person that you are, has occurred with literally quadrillions of moments of change. And what this does, unbelievably, is differentiates us one from another. You might not have thought about it very much, but you are an absolutely unique person. You have a unique machine in your head that's different in detail from every other machine like it in the world. It's unique in the sense that there's never going to be another one like it. There never has been another one just identical to it, because no one has your learning or experiential history. And no one has the same thoughts flowing through their brain, driving these complex changes that are just like yours. What a gift. What a gift this is. What a precious resource it is that we've been provided. And how important is it that we take good care of it, that we nurture it, that we help it, that we use it to grow. Now, as I just said a moment ago, we used to think that this gift sort of evaporates when we're young, but in fact, it's a lifelong resource. So if you look at this woman in the bottom right, weaving a basket, and you ask yourself, could someone learn the skill or ability like this at an older age, or improve in their ability? And you know that they could. The fact is that the acquisition of any skill or ability is a product of brain change. That's what skill acquisition is. It's remodeling your brain to specialize so that you can do that new thing. It actually changes itself physically. The machine is different in the acquisition. That's what the acquisition is all about. Your brain made you, and whatever your age, you're still a work in progress. The brain change occurs on a massive scale, and it underlies the development and refinement of all of the skills and abilities that define you. So here's a particular example of a skill or ability that all of you, I think probably at least most of you in this room, have mastered in your young life. I might say every older person hasn't mastered it. I had a conversation not too long ago with a millionaire that doesn't know how to read. Never learned, could never learn. Took in all the information and still takes in all the information of life I take before. Can't read. But if you're lucky enough to read, and you look down at the brain of a reader, you can see that you generate activities in the brain of, this is from 20 children that have learned to read, that clearly relate to the evolution of the ability to read. So I've highlighted two areas here. This area we know is the area where the translation of the sound parts of words that they're meaning are translated into little squiggles that we call letters. So there's a critical sound to orthographic or sound to visual transformation that has to occur with incredible facility and high speed, and that initial translation occurs in the zone. We know, for example, that the second zone, that I could outline 6 or 7 zones in the brain, we know that the second zone, the activity there is very highly correlated with your interpretation of the meaning of the written word. So a brain that can't read is not activated with its attempt to read. And here we're looking before at the brain of 20 children that couldn't read. They tried to, they struggled to read, but they were unsuccessful in reading, and of course they lacked these activities. It turns out it's pretty easy. About 3 million times, we've trained children on a computer. Takes a period of about 20 hours on training, looking on a computer, in ways that enable their reading, the successful reading initiation. In this particular instance, 17 of these 20 children, as a consequence of this roughly 20 hours of training, acquired the ability to read at grade level within a year. They trained for 20 hours, and then over the next year, by the end of the year, they were grade level or above. And when we look at their brain, they have a reading brain. Now we see activities in these areas. First, we see this activity just below that. We see that in every kid that's just beginning to read. This is immediately after the 20 hours of training. It's enabling reading, because now what we've done is train them to resolve the sound parts of words. We haven't trained them in that. What we actually trained them to do is to more accurately resolve the sound parts of words that are being translated. Because that's why most children that can't read fail at reading. And put it another way, if you want to help somebody, if you want to correct them, if you want to put them on a corrective path to correct their neurology, you have to understand a little bit about the complexities of the neurology that relate to the behavioral problem that they have to drive that correction. Now, while all of these thousands of neuroscientists out there have been studying the brain, and neurologists and other medical specialists in the neurological domain, we have developed a massive amount of information that helps us understand what's wrong in the brain of individuals that have almost every malady, that have almost every imaginable weakness you could think of. And we use that information, using that information over and over and over again, try to understand how to drive brains correctly. In this case, to basically solve a fundamental problem for the brain that's impeding, it's basically advancing in a very critical way in the life of these children who can't read. I want to talk a little bit about this plasticity process in another way, by focusing on its reversible nature. When we first discovered that adult brains were plastic, and these are experiments for what were conducted initially in my laboratory about 4 years ago, we quickly realized that plasticity was reversible. We quickly realized that we could train a monkey or a rodent in a way that improved the way they received or actively received or interpreted information from listening, or from information coming in from the body surface, or information in vision. And we could just as easily degrade it. And we could see that because we began to understand the rules by which the brain controlled its change. And we could manipulate the way information was delivered to the brain. And we could drive the brain, in a sense, in a positive direction or a negative direction. Well, that led to us doing experiments in which, that I could conceivably do, and you, if you would let me, I could take your hand, and by training you, within probably about 2 weeks, I could turn your hand into a useless claw. You have absolutely no specific, no control of manual actions from. And actually that occurs in human populations. In words of a condition called the focal dystonia of the hand, usually occupationally related, where people lose control of their hand because of the way that they're employing their hand in tasks in their work cycle. Now, in the same way, I can turn around that training, and And I can strongly differentiate and elaborate the use of your hand. I can give you superior performance abilities in the way you can use or deploy your hand. I could train you for a month, or 6 weeks maybe, and utterly destroy your ability to understand what I'm saying. Or I could turn that training around and refine your ability, improve your ability to what I'm saying, increase your accuracy and performance, even under very difficult listening conditions. Brain plasticity, we know, is bidirectional. About 7 or 8 years ago, a brilliant young neurologist working with me in San Francisco, and I asked a simple question: well, how broadly is this bidirectional plasticity? How broadly is it in play? So what we did in a series of experiments is we identified about 20 different dimensions of the physical, functional brain that obviously relate to its operational effectiveness in health. And we asked ourselves a simple question. First, how many of these 20 aspects of brain function, of the physical and functional brain that obviously relate to health, will be different in an animal near the end of life, an animal in the prime of life? So our initial model was a rat, and actually it was a wild rat. And here we have an animal, a wild rat near the end of life. You can tell he's old. Of course, actually this is a female, she's old, because she has white whiskers. I like to say, if you see a rat with white whiskers in your garage, be nice to her. She's old. And we're going to compare all of these characteristics. We're going to tell you what they are in a minute in a very superficial way. This is nerdy science, nerdy science, okay? So we're going to compare with the status of the brain in the animal in the prime of life. See, this cute little gal is holding her tail. And we know animals this age are just full of it. Very active, very vigorous, obviously very cognitively competent. This guy is really losing it. And we also compared in various ways. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. The brains of older men and women, the brains of younger, are the same way. Trying to look at the same multiple indices of brain function in the physical brain status. And the first question we asked was, how many of these things are different? In the brain of a rat near the end of life, expected to die in another month or two from the brain in the prime of life. And the answer is everything's different. Absolutely everything is substantially different in old versus young. And the second question we asked was, well, how many of these things advantage the older brain? And the answer was, I'm sorry, but the answer is none of them. Older is slower. Older is less active. Older is less capable in every way. Older is physically degraded. All kinds of things. Then we ask ourselves a third important question. That is, would it be possible to reverse these? We know some of them are reversible. But how many of these characteristics that distinguish old from young, in fact, can be driven back in a useful word direction by engaging the brain in training? And how complicated would the training have to be to achieve relatively complete or broad rejuvenation? So we sent the old individuals to the brain gym for brain health relevant training, you could say. Now, it turns out every aspect that distinguishes old from young is reversible. Every dimension that would distinguish the brain at the end of life from the brain in the prime of life, every dimension can be driven back far in a useful direction. In an Iraq, most of them can be driven all the way back, so that their performance abilities equal the operational capabilities of the brain in the prime of life. So this is really nerdy stuff, and it's hard to read for you in the back of the room. About a few of these things, and I'm going to say, and et cetera. Okay, the insulation on the brain's wires, so-called myelin on neurons, is restored. Looks just like the brain, again, of a younger animal. Response power is restored. Local response coordination is improved, so that it's very much like it is in young brain. And that's critical because coordination is the key to reliable operations in brains. The numbers of key neuron types are restored. Very depleted, very degraded in old brains. Virtually back to their normal levels and normal morphologies. The brain is appropriately trained. Young brain chemistry supporting plasticity is restored. It's degraded. Older brains are slower learners, but actually the machinery that's controlling learning rate is almost completely recoverable by appropriately training the brain. The brain speeds up so that now it's fast again, just like a brain gets. The other goes to the precision of how the brain is representing elementary information from the skin, the ears, and from the eyes is restored. On and on. Everything we look at is restored to a useful level. And the changes are coordinated. I'll put it another way. One of the things were going downhill as the rat was going towards its expected demise, not too far in its future. We threw a switch by training the animal, and everything moved back uphill together. Everything we looked at changed positively in a rejuvenating direction. It took two forms of training, two simple forms of training. One focused on increasing the resolving power of the brain. It's receiving information from the senses. And very systematically train that, and recover its accuracy and recover its precision. The second, we had to improve the resolving power of the brain working from the top. The precision with which you could hold things in working memory, hold it in memory while you operate it on into behavior, with all of the other things that could interfere with it, and ultimately operate with under conditions of high interference from all kinds of stuff and never losing your way. Those are the two key behavioral dimensions that had to be brought into play. And when we did that, everything was rejuvenated. So how do you turn an older impaired brain, physically and functionally more capable, a younger one? Well, you train it. Of course, it matters how you train it. And then, well, why did it go south to start with? Or to put it another way, could I accelerate aging? How can I turn a brain in the prime of life and older? Why the devil does it go south? And might I say, here's an important thing. There are people in this room whose brain has not gone south. One of the most notable things about performance and aging is that as you get older, there's a tremendous increase of the variation of neurological ability. Some people really retain it. Unbelievable. Other people are going south rapidly. So you have to sort out whether you're in the A or B class. It turns out it's very easy to take the brain in a negative direction. And I'm going to talk about it in a very simple, simplistic way. All you have to do really is figure out how to do this. Experimentally, we nerdy scientists think of ways to do this. You just have to add noise to the machinery of the brain. And by noise, I don't mean you're going to, put the animal in a loud chamber, noise chamber or something. What I mean is that we're going to increase the chatter, increase the sort of unregulated activity of the brain that's meaningless to the brain. Just grow it. Now, one way we can grow it is to actually put an animal into continuous acoustic noise, into continuous environmental noise. So everything, all the brain is being bombarded with meaningless information. And when you do that for a period of a few weeks, the brain of the animal looks like the animal's about to die. It accelerates aging very rapidly, very dramatically. And we can also do it by manipulating processes in the brain that hold down the noise in the brain. These are processes that we call inhibitory processes. Then we manipulate these variously chemically. And now that noise, the meaningless chatter grows, and the brain struggles to know what's happening, the brain adjusts. Why it's adjusting is totally natural. What the brain is doing is it's completely natural. What it's doing is making adjustments in the face of the conditions of signal to noise to do the best job it can at getting the answer right. So that's another thing the creator of the universe figured out. How, when vicissitudes arrive in a brain, and the brain can be noisier because of them, because of how you lead your life or where you are in life, how can you continue to get the main answers right so that the lion doesn't get you? And the answer is, if things are noisy, you slow down the process of the brain, you change the way you look at the world, and you look for the big answers. And that's what older people do.